Parking lot of the Leon County Jail at 4 a.m. when I was processed, charged with battery, bonded out, and released on $500 bail. Radar, our bus driver on that run, gave me a kind of nod and smile as I jumped on board with a sigh. In my cell, I had been seated next to a bleary-eyed man dressed only in a pair of sweatpants and a white tank top who went by the name of Mills. Mills. All the prisons are going to start farming out inmates' body parts for profits, he told me. He seemed like a seasoned veteran of the system, and I didn't question his wisdom. I nodded my head, listening to him talk, but mostly my mind wandered, lost in regret. I thought about what a stupid fucking mistake I'd made and how much hell was in store for me. Earlier that day, Heather, my wife, and I walked to a coffee shop in Tallahassee that shared a parking lot with the Beta Bar, a venue against me was scheduled to play that night, a place we had played regularly over the years. We ordered tea, and I walked to the back to use the restroom where I saw a bulletin board on the wall with various flyers and notes tacked to it. One was a write-up for our show cut from a newspaper. Someone had taken a pen to it, crossed out all our I's with X's, and scrawled the word sellout across my forehead. I tore it down, crumpled it up, and threw it in the trash. When I turned around, there was a punk right in my face. "What'd you do that for?" he snarled. "This was insulting to me, so I threw it out," I told him. "Who the fuck do you think you are? This is our space, not yours." He turned his back to me, walking to take his seat at the counter. I chased after him. "I'm a fucking human being and I don't know you. Why are you treating me like this?" He sat in front of his coffee, ignoring me. "What's your problem?" I pressed. "As far as I'm concerned, this conversation is over," he said, flashing me a smug look. As far as I was concerned, it wasn't. I snapped. At that moment, this guy was every person who'd ever called me a sellout, every punk in the crowd who'd given me the finger, every asshole who'd ever slandered my band's name in a fanzine. He raised his cup to take a sip, but I knocked it out of his hand before it reached his lips, sending coffee splattering in all directions. I grabbed him by the back of the head and slammed him face down, pinning his cheek against the wet counter. I was completely blacked out. I don't know what I would have done at that moment if I hadn't been torn off of him by some people who were starting to take shots at me. What I didn't realize was that later that night, this coffee shop was holding a protest show to counter the Against Me show next door. Most of the people there who knew who I was, and they tried to wrestle me to the ground. To me, they were just strangers throwing punches, but they knew my name. Every blow that landed on my body was a marker of revenge on behalf of the punk scene. It was a headbutt that brought me back to reality. It wasn't that it hurt, it was just that the idea of getting headbutted was so ridiculous that it snapped me back to my senses. "Just let me go," I told them. "I'm gonna release your arms," I heard someone behind me say. "If you hit me, I swear to God, I'll fucking kill you." "Sure, bro," I thought, "you're gonna fucking kill me, right?" I had no idea what Heather was thinking as we left the scene. She said nothing. We walked in silence along the nearby railroad tracks until it was time to get back to the venue. There were 2 police cars waiting in the parking lot when we arrived. I walked up to the first officer I saw, introduced myself, and asked if they were looking for me. He informed me that they had to arrest me, but gave me a choice. I could go straight to jail or play the show first. I chose to play, setting myself up for a terrible performance. I was distracted throughout the whole set by an inner rage of defeat and the dread of what was waiting for me when it was over. I had been rung through the legal system before and knew that long, arduous process I was in for. After the show was over, I changed clothes on the bus, popped 2 Valiums, and met the officers waiting for me behind the venue. They handcuffed me, put me in a squad car, and started driving me down to the station. We pulled out of the parking lot along some fans exiting the venue. The cruiser circled by the coffee shop, and from the back seat I looked up at its marquee, which had been changed to read Tallahassee Punks 1, Against Me 0. I woke up to find my mugshot plastered all over the front pages of music websites along with my arrest report for battery. Hair, brown. Identifying marks, tattoos all over. Sex, male. There were 2 messages waiting for me, one from my manager with a list of legal defense options and the other from the boss, Bruce Springsteen himself. Bruce had praised our band in the press and come to see us play, an always gracious, humble guest, and about as low-key as you can get if you're Bruce Springsteen. "Dear Tom, I hope all is well. In regards to some of the criticisms you've been taking for your great album, some real smart guy once said, 'He who is not busy being born is busy dying.'" That was Bob Dylan. I still hold that to be true. I can't count the amount of changes I've been through that have pissed off some fans. If you have a long career, not only will that happen over and over again, but it's supposed to. The Clash's second album, Give 'Em Enough Rope, was produced by Sandy Pearlman. High production values, hard guitars, and received some similar criticisms from the faithful. Who remembers that now besides old guys like me? Nobody. All they remember is the Clash went on to be one of the most important bands we'd ever seen. It just comes with the turf. If you're not reaching out beyond the audience you have to the greater audience you might have, you'll never find out what your band is truly capable of, what it's worth, and how much meaning you can bring into your fans' lives. If you act honorably, which means writing well, performing like it's the only thing that matters on a nightly basis, and giving the best yourself to pull out the best in your audience, you've done your job. Then you can let the chips fall where they may. Protect your heart, your art, your band, your friendships, then charge on, brother, charge on. I'll be catching up with you along the way. Come out and see us anytime. Bruce Springsteen. I felt humiliated in front of Heather. I had let my band down, and I had let Bruce down too. So that was 9 years ago. And here we are now. Sorry about that. But yeah, that was like in many ways like a real start of a downfall for my band. Being caught up in the legal system, as I said, I'd been caught up before, and it was a real nightmare. And then once that was like finished up being dealt with, my band went through a lawsuit. We were really dysfunctional as a band. We didn't get along at all. And at first it was enough to like fire a merch person or fire a guitar tech or a sound person. And eventually we fired our manager, who turned around and sued us for $1.24 million. And that was a lawsuit that lasted for like 3 years. So when that happened, it turned, my first thought was like, okay, well, we gotta write a hit record. That's the only thing that's gonna save us. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal bills coming in right now, so that, we gotta do this. And that was when we started working on our 5th record, White Crosses, which was not a hit record. But, I came out at the other end of all that eventually, after 3 years with the lawsuit over. And, I still had my band. I was married, I had a kid, had a house, had a 2-car garage, I had like what should have been enough. I had it all, right? Whatever. But it wasn't, it wasn't enough to make the dysphoria go away. And I came to the realization that if this was the way I felt when I was 5 years old, it was the way I felt at 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 25 years old, 30 years old, that this was the way I was going to feel forever. And I had no choice but to come out then. And so I did. Sorry. And it kicked off a lot of changes in my life. And there were a lot of fears that went along with that. So I just kept writing, and those songs led to our 6th record, which was a record called Transgender Dysphoria Blues. So I'll play a couple more songs, and then I'd love to take some questions from y'all. But this is a song from that record, and this is a song I wrote for my daughter called 2 Coffins.